We are now on the frame assembly portion of the build, and this calls for parts bags F1, F2, and F3. And what you would want to bring out first are all the carbon fiber pieces. You'll need the plastic parts and all the other accompanying items later. I do want to point out that one interesting thing I noticed is Blade decided that there's no left or right side of the frame, which is a really good thing. You can just stock one type of side frame. You don't have to order a left or right when you crash. I really like it that they did it this way. You know, for my other helicopters, I'm kind of tired of ordering, you know, both sides. So this is a very nice feature that they did, that they made this the same. So for this part of the build, the manual calls for sanding areas where the wires are going to be running. This is to prevent wires from chafing and causing a short from your servo wires to your power system wires. What I normally do is I just sand the entire frame, you know, all the entire frame edges, both sides. You know, this side, this sharper, this corner right here, then flip it over this corner right here. You can do that by using you know, sandpaper. What you would do is you'd sandpaper the corners like that all the way around, and do the other side all the way around, and all the holes all the way around. Now, please don't do this without proper breathing protection like a mask. You do not want to be inhaling the carbon fiber particles when you're sanding this. If you do not have a mask, I suggest you can sand it wet, you know, like on slow running faucets, so all the particles just fall down the sink and you won't be breathing it. So there are other ways of doing that. Another one that I do when I feel lazy is I take small Dremel grinding bit and put it on the slowest setting and kind of just make my way around the frame. But I do not recommend this if you don't have good control of your Dremel, or you don't have one that goes slow enough, as if it slips you will scratch the carbon fiber, and that's kind of a bummer when you have a brand new helicopter. So this I only would say if you're very experienced with the Dremel and you are more than confident to go ahead and take it nice and slow around everything. But you know, for this one, so everything comes out perfect, I will use the sandpaper, and once I do all the frames, we'll continue to build. I have finished sanding the edges of the frames, both sides, inside and out. Everything's nice and smooth. The wires shouldn't get chaffed anymore if they get, you know, touched this during flight. So everything's done, both sides. Just to speed things up, I already put together some pieces per the manual on page 7. The first thing it calls for is identifying the two aluminum pieces, which is the upper and middle bearing block. The way to distinguish it is the upper has these protrusions in the back. Set this aside for now, and that's in the later part of the build. What you need to install is the middle block, which has this left kind of a angle here going into the left side of the frame. You install the frame stiffener and then put these two screws in just like so. So don't tighten down anything yet. We'll do that later. I really haven't put any Loctite, and I will, you know, get back to that later as well. The bottom bearing block is also installed pretty straightforward. One thing I notice is on the manual it shows this portion as the one facing the top, the one with like a little lip compared to the other side has a full lip. So the way it shows on the drawing, it's installs like this. So I just followed it. Bottom plastic piece just installs with 2 screws. Yeah, like I said, everything's loose for now. And just keep in mind the screw lengths for the middle bearing block and the bottom one are of different lengths. The bottom bearing block has longer screws, so don't mix them up. So what we need to do just to finish up this and then to continue to the next portion is put the frames, put the frame stiffeners. In this case, I will go ahead and insert the screws to make it easier. This one will bolt onto the middle bearing block. Okay. This bottom piece has to go into these little steps right there. I'll screw in the bottom bearing block there, and see, I'm keeping everything nice and loose for now. So I will finish this off and we will continue. So we are at the portion where we're going to be installing the servos onto the frame. Please take note that one of the servos is a different model. It says H6080G. I don't know if you can see that. Okay, and this is the gyro servo for the tail, which will be mounted back here. So separate that. The 3 cyclic servos are all the same, which by the way I have already mounted the rubber grommets just to get things going. And what I'll do now is mount all the mount the upper block and all the servos and the frame stiffeners, and I'll discuss in detail when I get them all into the frame. I've now installed all the servos into the frame per the manual. I've also installed the upper block per the manual, and just for reference, this is the front of the helicopter going this way. So that protrusion right there is just like the bottom, not the bottom, the middle block is where the elevator servo will mount. So as you see right there, it's mounted and down there. For the 2 servos outside the frame, they just mount through like that, fairly straightforward. And I have installed the frame stiffeners, top one right here, the bottom one right here. So they're on both sides. For the tail servo, it is screwed in through the inside, and it is these plastic pieces right here is where the tapping screws go in. So I just wanted to illustrate, so everything right now is fairly loose. I have not tightened down any of the screws. Really, there's no Loctite yet on any of these screws, and now is where, on the next step, this is where I wanted to bring it in, to bring on and discuss is what I'll be doing is I will be going to a flat surface like a glass table, and that's where I will lay the bottom of the frame, you know, like so. And from there, on this flat surface, I will be inserting the head through the frame itself. So what this does is it straightens out everything, all the blocks, and that's when you start tightening down, Loctiting, and then tightening down every single screw that goes into the frame, the servos, all the way around. So that ensures that the helicopter is nice and straight. Once you do that, you will notice the main shaft will slide very nicely in and out. So I will go ahead and do that, and we'll continue on. So I have completed tightening down all the frame screws and servo screws by I instead of moving my entire camera setup to another table, I just opted to do it off camera. But what I did was I set it down on a very flat surface like a glass coffee table, and while the main shaft is inserted, I went and removed and Loctite and installed, removed Loctite and installed every single frame screw and servo screw. So this assures me that when I tighten down everything, that the three bearing blocks are all straight, because the main shaft was inserted while I was doing this, and it shows. You see how smooth it is, and the main shaft just slides in and out with no effort. So the next portion of the build calls for installing the skids and the plastic piece up front that holds the ESC and the main gear. So I'll go ahead and get back when I get those items onto the helicopter, and we'll touch base on the main collar and adjustment from there. So for the next step, we are going to be installing the landing skid and the ESC, the speed control holder up front. So this one's not screwed on right now. I just inserted right there. And on bag F4, all these screws and washers are all in there. So they have 4 sets of tapping screws, the shorter ones, which will be used for the ESC tray right here, and then 4 longer ones with the washers that will be used for the landing gear, which will bolt through those nylon lock nuts that are in the bottom plastic tray. So I'll go ahead and do that, and we will continue. So I have installed the landing gear for that step of the manual and the ESC holder. One thing I haven't installed that I just realized now is the canopy mounts. And just to show, it wasn't very clear in the manual how you do this, but it is it's a screw right here, and what you do is you screw it into the canopy mount. Just apply light coat of Loctite on here. I'll do it for both. And that just mounts to the back of the helicopter right here. So just want to, and you can definitely just grab a long tip plier and just give it a turn just to tighten it down. That should be good enough. Okay, so next step, what I wanted to show you is the next step. The manual is suggesting that we lube the one-way bearing inside the main gear. It came with the Jesus bolt in it. I just took it off, and what you do is you turn it counterclockwise and pull at the same time on the smaller gear, and it will separate. There is this small washer in the middle, that goes on like so. So just put that aside. Make sure you don't drop or lose it. And this is the sleeve that goes the one way. So the manual just states go ahead and apply grease, the synthetic grease on here, and push it back down. I actually have done it already for, so I don't get all my hands sloppy while showing you guys this. So I've applied grease on it, and then you put the washer back in, and you can just definitely push. You can just push this back on and line up the hole by just you kind of like turning and finding the hole. Once you got it, it's ready to be mounted onto the helicopter, and we will continue once I get everything all set up. So now I have the main gear inserted into the frame. It's pretty straightforward. Just insert it on any side. Tail drive gear on top. So you get your main shaft, and now you insert the main shaft collar. And what you'll have is this cone shape will be facing the radial bearing, and the flat portion facing up on top. So like I think I mentioned earlier, this slot gives you a little bit of adjustment. I'll just adjust it to the max right now. This is just so it can help me line up the hole easier for the Jesus bolt. So I'll go ahead and do that, and I will come back and show you how to adjust that main shaft collar. What I have done is I have tightened down the Jesus bolt on the main shaft. I'm not sure if you can see it in there. One thing I do want to make people aware is please do not over tighten that Jesus bolt. What happens is when you over tighten that, it compresses the plastic in the sleeve inside, and eventually you'll end up with a wobbling set of gears for the the tail drive gear will start wobbling when you over tighten that. So it has a nylon lock nut, so just get it snug and tight, but not super tight where it'll deform the plastic. So the next step is the main shaft collar, which is this. And what I like to do is pull the shaft up, which actually in this case blade's design of the middle and bottom bearing block is tolerance is so nice and perfect. I was expecting that there's going to be play before we tighten this down, but there's none. So that's actually very nice. What I will just do now is put the notch for the collar right in front of one of the set screws and tighten down. As you can see, there's no play on the main shaft at all. So what I'll do is finish up, put Loctite on it, and we'll continue on to the next step of the build. For this step, we will be installing the motor onto the frames. But first, the only thing that I would say that is notable here is the screws, the motor mount screws are just straightforward Loctite, tighten them down. Blade does mention to have a 3mm protrusion right here, so you have the pinion slightly in with a 3mm protrusion. And this is primarily because, as you notice, the pinion has kind of this shape, and you definitely want the main shaft, the main gear, to be riding on the flat spot, which starts from here all the way down. So I'm sure that they have measured, they set this measurement as kind of a guide, so you don't end up riding the main gear on the angled area here. But I would still say just keep an eye on it when you insert it, double check, and make sure the main gear rides on the flat portion of the pinion. So this is fairly straightforward. We slide it in like so and bolt it in, and I will do that to speed the process up, and return and set the gear mesh. So we're now gonna move on to setting the gear mesh. I've been setting gear meshes on helicopters for quite some time, and I'm just used to knowing where to position. I got the set. By the way, I got the screws on the frames for the motor loose, so the motor slides in and out right now. Well, what I was trying to say is I've been setting gear meshes for a long time that I'm pretty comfortable with regards to just, you know, by feel, by moving it and then trying the right amount of slack. But for this video, I wanted to come up with a kind of a better way to explain how you can set the gear mesh. So one very, I'd say, tried and true way, even that dates back from my racing of RC cars, was to get a strip of paper, which is just, you know, regular letter paper, and I cut it, and I actually tested it earlier, and it did set pretty much a perfect mesh. So what I did was I inserted this strip. Let me see here. I inserted the strip and started turning the motor, so it took that paper right in between the main gear and the motor gear, like so. So it's right there in between, and then from there I gave this a push, and then tighten down the motor. You know, just make sure that the motor is level. I'm just trying to I'll double check this. I'm just trying to show you all by so it's closer to the camera. So that's the method I tried earlier. So the paper is right there in between, and from there I will, you know, back it out and check the main gear, and voila, it actually has the right amount of play or gear mesh set from the main gear and the pinion. So that's one good way of doing it. If you're used to setting it by feel, you can certainly do so, but for the beginners out there, your standard piece of paper cut and then pushed in works really well. We'll move on to the next portion of the build, which is the tail case, and we will continue.